A while ago, I was having a conversation with one of my brothers, and then they were like, Palmer, does it actually make sense when people say, if you love me the way I am? When I heard that, I was like, wow, that's a good question. I've never thought of it that way. But to be honest, it actually doesn't make sense. Because when I thought about it, I was like, wait, when it comes to love, love requires letting go of self, you know. It requires putting the other person or the other people's needs ahead of you. It requires letting go of those bad habits or those bad attitudes that just makes them really mad. But like when you love someone, you want to be the best version of yourself with them. You want them to be happy in your company. You want them to enjoy being with you, you know. That's why love. And love, when it comes to love, love requires growth. But if you're not willing to grow, if you're not willing to change, you're not going to grow in it. You're not willing to change, you're not going to grow. So when I thought about it, I was like, wait, even when it comes to marriage, it's like two people, like they come together and they're now saying, this is no longer my body, this is now your body. I'm not going to think about, myself now, but I have to think about pleasing you, not just with the body, but even my actions, my attitude, everything that I do. So everything that I'm going to do with myself also kind of impacts on you. Now when it comes to God, usually we say we love God, but do we really love Him? Do we really love Him? Like, love Him? Because, and in order for whilst you're thinking about it, I'm just going to throw out some verses and I hope they'll touch you the way they touch me. Because Proverbs chapter 27 verse 5 says, open rebuke is better than secret love. And then Revelation chapter 3 verse 19 says, those whom I love, I rebuke and discipline. So be earnest and repent. So God is saying, openly, when you love someone, you're not just going to leave them wallowing into the wilderness. You're not going to leave them to keep walking to that like forest that there are a lot of snakes and wild animals. Let them just go. They'll learn the lesson. But when you love someone, you're like, no, you're not going. You are not going because I don't want you to perish. I don't want you to die. I don't want anything bad to happen to you because I love you that much. Sometimes it might look like you are being too, strict. But when it comes to love, you just got to do that, man. Even when you look at a parent and a child, a parent, they're not just going to leave their child to keep a good parent. Like, they're not just going to leave their child to keep stealing and bringing stuff at home that's not theirs and everything like that. But they'll discipline them, hopefully. And that's the same with God. Like in Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 5, he says, know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord your God disciplines you. So they have now just noticed that God loves us enough to leave us where we are. He loves us enough to keep quiet when he sees us wallowing into the wilderness or into a hole, whatever. He loves us enough that he would rebuke us, discipline us, and tell us, no, you're doing something that's wrong. Sometimes you might do that through an illness, or you might do that through removing everyone from our lives. You might do that through making us feel or whatever. As long as you end up knowing that you go into the wilderness, then that's great, man. But God also says that in John chapter 14 verse 15, if you love me back, if you love me, keep my commandments. And then John chapter 15 verse 9, he says, as the Father had loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. So Jesus is saying, if you love me, keep my commandments. Okay, I love you. I'm going to rebuke you. I'm going to discipline you. But if you love me back now, you got to keep my commandments. Child, you gotta walk. We're gonna have to walk together in this journey. Otherwise, if I'm saying let's go that way and you're not listening to me, then I can't do anything than to just watch you whilst you're going into that wilderness. Because even if I tell you don't do this and you do it, then that's not going to help. But if you want us to have a healthy relationship and to grow and to go to the right direction, then when I say don't do it, just don't do it. Keep my commandments. And then when it comes to health, your question might be, are there even any commandments about health and everything like that? Well, if you study Exodus chapter 15 and 16, which I encourage everyone to study. Like for this month, your challenge is to study Exodus chapter 15 and 16, especially Exodus chapter 16. If you study them and just look for all the health principles in them, trust me, you'll notice that God just doesn't focus on our spiritual, like He's a God who focuses on spiritual, mental, physical, and social as well. Like He wants us to have a holistic health. And Exodus chapter 15 verse 26, it says, and said, if thou would diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and would do that which is right in His sight, and would give ear to His commandments, and keep all His statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. So God is saying, I love you. Right. If you love me, keep my commandments. And the first thing that you have to do, if you keep my commandments and listen to every word that I'm saying, then I won't pour these illnesses upon you. You won't face these illnesses. These illnesses might come through stress or maybe heart attacks or whatever, or maybe we're overeating and then we end up having those illnesses. Like God is saying, if you keep my commandments, I won't bring these illnesses upon thee. Because I'm a God that healeth. I'm a God that wants the best for you. I love you enough. I want the best for you. But in order for that to happen, you have to walk in my law. You have to keep my commandments. And then the verse that literally just took me, like that, when I read the verse, it just made me think, come on. Not turning back. Like we need to do this thing. Like we need to be healthy. It was Exodus chapter 16 verse 4. It says, then said the Lord unto Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or not. So God is like, if you love me, trust me, babe. Like, I want you to trust me with your everyday needs. Like, if you love me, I'm going to provide for you every single day. That which you need. Because if you study Exodus chapter 16, like they had to take a certain rate every day. And if you look, like, basically, it says like they had to take an armor. Some were allowed to take a bit less, some a bit more. But everyone, when they took whatever they took, like it was enough for their need for that day. So God provided for their day. Like He knew that people are gonna need different needs. Like no one can have the same amount of food, like literally. So He was like, okay, I'll give provision for that, but you have to still keep temperance in it. So God is saying, I will provide for you, for your needs if you trust me. You just gotta trust me. And then once you trust God, like those stress levels will decrease. And then He's also saying that, so there's temperance, there's trust in there. And then He's also saying that if you keep my law, it will be a sign of whether you love me or not. Although I'm not saying that by us keeping the health laws, it's a sign whether we love God or not. But according to that verse, you notice that, like, like when you hear people say, oh, if you love me, do this for me. If you love me, I don't think you love me because you're not doing that. I don't think you love me because you do. But basically, God is saying, you know what, if you love me, keep my commandments. If you love me, do this. And when you do this, at least I will know, like, it will be a sign. It will be a proof, like sort of a proof that, oh, actually, that child loves me. And then when you come to me and say, okay, God, I've been doing everything that's right and everything like that, like, at least you have a promise. Or that doesn't really say that. That doesn't mean that you will never, ever suffer from illnesses. But you know, when you love someone, you want to be the best version of yourself. You want to decrease illness. You want to decrease anything that may hinder your relationship or your communication with that person. So if you want to have a really healthy relationship with God and to remove anything that may hinder your communication or your energy to go out there and do His will, then follow His commandments. To know His commandments, you go and study Exodus chapter 16 and more. And if you have any questions, let us know, and we'll find a way to kind of go over the study with you of all the health principles from the Bible and the Bible only. But anyway, the question that I'm going to leave you with, or the other thing about rest, like basically God is saying, I want you to have a holistic, to take a certain rate every day. And then after, like basically he's also saying, I want you to go out there and work. So that's work. He wants us to work for our food. And He also wants us to rest after all this, like after every single day, to just rest and take time with Him. Because you can't be just like going throughout the day without resting. You won't really understand the blessings for the next day or the day before if you don't have enough rest. So basically, in order to understand more on rest, look at one of our articles. They will literally explain. But basically, the question that I'm going to leave you with today after all this is, do you love Him enough? Do you love God enough to say, take over my body? My body is no longer mine. My body is not my own. Create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. Do you love Him enough to be willing to be changed by Him so that you can become the best version you can be and have that healthy relationship with Him? Do you love Him enough? That He gave